Welcome to video number 9 in the handgun series, multiple target acquisition and engagement. Before we move out to the Renaissance Shooting Club, where I will give a dry fire, live fire demonstration of engaging multiple targets, I want to talk about a few things first. Hopefully we don't get hit with some rainy weather, which is sort of the reason why I want to get this introduction done here at my home before we move out to the range, because the range is about 40 minutes from where I live, so it looks like I'm going to get some rain here at my house, but maybe not at the range, hopefully. But the point is, I want to talk about multiple target acquisition and engagement from a self-defense perspective. First of all, most self-defense scenarios are going to be one-on-one type of engagements. Unless, of course, it's a home intrusion where there's a good possibility there's more than one bad guy, or carjacking, where there's a possibility that you'll have more than one bad guy. So you need to understand and become proficient in terms of engaging multiple targets. The basic foundation of engaging multiple targets is your hand-to-eye coordination, moving those eyes before you actually move your pistol. And so, give me a few minutes, I'm going to go grab my pistol, and I'll give a little bit of a demonstration now as it relates to what I'm talking about in terms of eye-to-hand coordination. So I'll be right back. Okay, in multiple target acquisition and engagement, again, it's the hand-eye coordination. So when we get out to the range, you'll see me do a dry fire demonstration of this hand-eye coordination, and you'll notice I will overemphasize, or I will exaggerate the movement of my head in order that you can see more clearly what I'm talking about in terms of moving your eyes to the next target before you move your pistol. So you'll see out at the range, I'll do a dry fire demonstration, and I'll move my head to the next target before I move my pistol. Now, that's just to show you clearly the movement of my eyes before the pistol, but in a real scenario, you're just moving your eyes because it's going to be quick. So I want you to practice in multiple target acquisition, moving those eyes before you move the pistol. But in real life, again, the exaggerated head movement is not going to be there. Now, the other important point I want you to realize in terms of engaging multiple targets is that obviously in a real live self-defense scenario, the pucker factor is ×5. Your heart rate is up to anywhere from 115 to 135 beats per minute, maybe even higher. So when you have, let's say, 3 targets or 3 bad guys, it's very important to engage each one of those targets as quick as possible and as accurate as possible, and then follow up with additional shots to each target or bad guy in order to ensure that the threat has been eliminated. Now, there is some movement in this that we really haven't talked about, discussed in the past. But after you engage your multiple targets, move toward the targets and then take your follow-up shots to ensure the threat is eliminated. So this is important to remember. Also, it's very important to remember that in an event where you take multiple shots, it's important that you reload your handgun with a fresh magazine, because first of all, you're not going to be absolutely sure that there is not another threat that's out there. So you need to be prepared, because you're probably not going to remember how many shots you actually took. Therefore, whether you're at slide lock, empty or not, you reload your handgun with a fresh magazine. So, let me take a break here, give me a sip of coffee, and I'll be right back to make a few concluding remarks before we head out to the shooting range. Okay, let me just briefly add a few more points as to the hand-to-eye coordination. A lot of shooters will move the handgun as they move their eyes. Again, you don't want to do that. You want to move your eyes before you move the handgun. You want to give your brain a nanosecond to get in sync with your eyes. Or I should say, you want to give your brain a nanosecond to get your hands in sync with your eyes. So just practice that in your backyard, moving your eyes before you move the handgun. And when you do, of course, focus on that front side. What this is reflexive shooting. It's not a situation where you're out at the range just squeezing off rounds from a stationary position. You're actually drawing from the holster, engaging that target, and multiple targets in this case. So engaging multiple targets from a hand-to-eye coordination can be practiced in your backyard. Now, one other point about multiple shots. The reason I say you need to follow up your initial engagement with follow-up shots is because you may not have actually disabled any of those threats by your single shot, but you need to get a single shot at each target and then follow up with multiple shots, because the important point you want to do here is you want to disable your threat or eliminate the threat, hopefully with a good center mass shot. But again, you may not have done that, so you need to follow up to ensure that you've disabled the threat or eliminated the threat. You may have only hit the bad guy in the shoulder or in the leg, what have you. So you need to follow up to neutralize that threat, because that bad guy may still be in a fighting posture to do you harm. So that's the point I wanted to make. So now we'll head out to the shooting range in Magnolia, Texas, and I'll do some dry fire demonstration and then conclude with a live fire demonstration. Now, Video number 9, the multiple target acquisition engagement, is the next to last video in the handgun series. Starting next week, I'm going to discuss, demonstrate, present to you the 7 basic skills that I believe you need to master in order to be highly proficient and effective with the pistol. There'll be 7 stages of gunfire. All 7 stages will be done at 7 yards. And in essence, it's the old Air Marshal's qualification exam, which many, if not all, law enforcement personnel consider to be the most challenging and the most difficult pistol qualification in the nation. So, I hope you enjoyed this brief video, that you will enjoy what I will demonstrate here in a few minutes, and then we'll move forward with the final examination of using the handgun in self-defense. And then we'll move on to the 12-gauge pump-action shotgun and, of course, the carbine. So, let's head out to the shooting range and get started. Okay, with an empty firearm, I'm going to kind of demonstrate in a dry fire scenario the movement of the eyes before you move the pistol. Now, again, I will over-exaggerate this movement just so you can get an idea of what I'm talking about. But as you become more proficient with multiple target acquisition, you won't even see the head move. It'll just be the eyes moving in nanoseconds as you engage the multiple targets. Now, remember, multiple target acquisition is just like multiple shots. You have to be concerned about your grip. You have to be concerned about keeping that support elbow extended out some so you can manage that recoil. And then, of course, trigger squeeze and focusing on that front sight. Now, as in self-defense shootings, you want to get to the point where you're so proficient that it's reflexive shooting. It's not like you go to the indoor range and you stand there and do your sight alignment, get your sight picture, do your trigger squeeze. Okay, this is reflexive shooting. You identify a target, you come out and engage that target. Yes, you want to, as you come out with the handgun, yes, just like I've talked about in previous videos, you want to come out, and as you're extending that firearm, your eyes are getting focused on that front sight, hopefully having a good sight picture. But this is reflexive shooting. You're not shooting for the X. You're trying to hit center mass, but what you're trying to do is lay down a fast, I should say, a quick firing rate, hopefully getting a good hit rate. And again, that's why I mentioned after you engage your multiple targets, you engage them again with multiple shots, because you're not sure during that brief 2 or 3 seconds that you've disabled all of the assailants, or maybe you've just disabled 2 of the 3. You have to ensure that the threat is eliminated. So, let's get started here with some dry fire demonstration. Again, watch my head. That head is my eyes moving before I move my pistol. So now I'll do a live fire demonstration of multiple target acquisition and engagement. What you just witnessed was I took a shot at each one of those 3 targets. Then I came back and took a couple shots at them again in order to ensure I neutralized the assailants. Now, also notice I shot multiple rounds. Didn't have time to check my handgun, whether I was at slide lock, whether I was empty. I just immediately loaded a fresh magazine. And I did that before I assessed the situation on the ground as it relates to what was in front of me, as well as what was behind me. So it's important always to keep in mind, if you make multiple shots and you've neutralized your threat, or what appears to be only the threat, that you make sure that you are fully reloaded before you assess your environment, just in the event there's some other asshole out there waiting to take a shot. So, this is something you can practice, like I said, in a dry fire scenario. It's also something that you can with particular targets that have multiple bullseye or targets displayed, that you can practice this in an indoor range. Now, you won't be able to necessarily make the movements, but you'll be able to practice the hand-to-eye coordination. Now, notice also, after I took my shots, I changed my position. I moved to my right. Okay, why? Because after I put the assailants on the ground, they're going to remember where I was the last time they saw me, not where I am now. So these are all things that you have to think about, you have to practice, and the only way you can develop this muscle memory, get this reflexive shooting down, is to practice over and over again. So, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, you can practice this in your backyard. So, next week, I will conclude the handgun series with what I consider the final examination, where I will demonstrate 7 techniques that you've seen already in one shape or another in previous videos, including this one, where if you master these 7 techniques, you will be highly proficient and you will have been considered in the top 1% of pistol shooters nationwide. Not competitive shooters from the standpoint of competitive shooting. I'm talking about the real live, reality-based tactical shooting environment, whereby it's reality-based, where these techniques, these 7 techniques or drills that I will discuss next week, if you master these, chances are, in any self-defense scenario, whether it's yourself or innocent people, you will be able to effectively engage that threat. So until next time, honor God, love your family, and defend the Constitution.